We had yet another reminder of the terrifying report this week that came out on climate change, both the impacts America's already seen and the even more frightening prospects of what expected, and I'm not talking about a century from now, I'm talking about in our lifetime's future. Now, you want three quick examples, here you go. Southwest, expected to see an enormous increase when it comes to drought and water shortages. That means more wildfires, destroying more property, and threatening more lives, and trust me, more fights over who gets the water. And in the east and the northeast, our neck of the woods, more flooding, especially in coastal cities like New York, and bigger storm surges impacting people all along the coastlines as well as even further inland. You want to go out west, really west, and in Alaska, you're going to see less snow, dying forests, etc. The Times today reported on one of the most threatened big cities that we know, and I'm talking about Miami, where flooding has become commonplace. City leaders are hoping to spend big to improve drainage systems and are studying other remedies like seawalls, barrier islands. But local governments can only deal with the symptoms, the after effects of climate change. They can't begin to change the causes of it, like regulations, reducing emissions, etc. That, of course, is up to not just so much state, but even federal lawmakers and even on the international landscape. And the Times notes that three key Republicans, we just want to look at Florida here, Governor Rick Scott, and the two men on your screen, former Governor Jeb Bush and Senator Marco Rubio, both considered very likely presidential candidates. Essentially, they've gone silent on this issue. It's not surprising, given that the only major policy ideas on climate change involve taxes and regulation. You got to find the money somewhere here, and you also got to clamp down on these emissions. And neither of these are really palatable when it comes to Republican politics. I want to talk about the politics second this, but I want to come on the primary thing first. And I find that when you put it in human terms and you think about it from your own family, your own loved ones, I know that my youngest, 8, in his lifetime, it's going to be a very different country that he lives in because of this. And shame on me and people before me if we don't at least try something. I know it's hard, I know it's difficult, but I guess one of the questions is, the biggest cop-out that people have, there's some legitimacy to it, is, hey, if we do something and we make really major inroads, China and India won't. We'll be at a disadvantage internationally on the commerce scene if we try to clamp down and the rest of the world doesn't.
To me, this is a no-brainer. First off, our generation, my generation, looks at our parents and said, how in the world could they have discriminated against people based on color? This generation of kids is going to look at my generation and say, how could they have left us a world like this? How could they be so oblivious to the challenges of the environment? And I really fought my own party for not willing to speak about the environment because they equate the environment with the taxes. There are just lots of things we should do. I wish, more than anything else, that after September 11th, George Bush had said, we're going to become energy independent. And then we're going to take some of that, and we're going to get lots more oil and natural, the natural fuels, and we're going to use some of it to promote the renewables.
You said something in the break, Tom, and I agree with it. The face of this has to change, in that if people see Al Gore and The Inconvenient Truth, or they look at somebody that hugs trees on the weekend, it's not going to go anywhere. But I always find one of the best things about our country is when faced with crisis, at least in generations past, we meet the moment. Well, I don't think you have to be, every climatologist there is, all agree it's bad. New York's climate is going to be in 25 years North Carolina's. What does that make the Texases and the Arizonas and the rest?
It means that I will be golfing more, but the point is, in a serious note, is that then the face of it should be George Pataki, a Republican who loves the environment, who did a lot, on a day-to-day basis. We had it here in the administration, we used to roll our eyes.
Jim Buckley, he was a great senator on the environment.
Phenomenal. But look, you need partnerships here, okay? I agree. It's not global warming, it's climate change. There's no doubt it's taking place. But that means then we need to become energy independent, okay? That means we need fracking. We need to go for natural gas. We can't just shut it down. Chuck Schumer was right this week. We should move forward on it. We should have nuclear energy in this country. We should be drilling in Anwar, which we should have done 20 years ago. We should be doing the Keystone Pipeline, et cetera. Get away from the Saudi stuff, et cetera, and then move towards a place that produces cleaner and cleaner air. There's no question that we need to do that. But again, we need to take a bipartisan approach, and that means leadership. That means we get a little, you get a little. We don't see any of that in Washington these days.
We're dancing on the margins here a little bit in that, what are we going to do about water? Like, honestly, I only in the last 4 years have become really invested or cared about the subject of environment. We're going to have Nevada and Arizona and part of California, they're already doing it now. There are towns where people are leaving completely because there's no more water. It's supposed to multiply how fast this is going to happen. What are we going to do? I don't know the answer to these questions, but do we have to have major desalinizations projects? I mean, look at this. We have now major crops in this country. This season, the price of food is going to go way up. We don't have arable land where we used to. And that's a real problem. We're talking food and water. Forget about even gas at the moment.
So let's have conversations about this, and let's not have these stupid conversations for 3 months about where a plane may have gone down.
Thank you.
It's a real tragedy.
And spend a lot of money doing it.
Yeah.
Money that we could be doing to save the future of our country.
Look, part of the problem is that we're not very good at fending off disaster until it's right in our face. We seem to be a very last-minute society, especially more so now. So, because it's not we don't see the effects immediately. We don't see the temperature changing dramatically every single year. It's in little increments. And that's part of the problem too. Part of the problem is that we have the invested actors in all of this acting in their own best interest, the interest that they're supposed to do. They're doing their jobs, but in a way that may hurt the overall conversation. Businesses are obviously going to lobby against these sorts of regulations because it makes business more expensive.
Well, there's one example. I'm not trying to pick on the right, the left here, but the Koch brothers have managed, you get solar credits. This was, to me, interesting, where depending on how much solar energy you do, you could sell it back. I never thought they liked the tax in their life. They want to tax these people on selling the credits back to disincentivize the amount of solar energy that can be bought cheap, because if you buy it, if you use energy that way, it'll cut back on other fuel, whatever that you're going to purchase, and that's against their self-interest. My point is, it sounds stupid. We mentioned Ross Perot before. Remember him with his charts? If somebody could say, this is where we are in 2014, everybody, and you don't think of them as a partisan, and say, this is what it's going to look like in 2034. That's 20 years from now. My kids, hopefully, I'm not paying for more school by then, but they're going to be out in the real world. What's it going to look like then? Do you imagine if we're starting to fight over food and water in this country on certain things?
But we also need to have an honest conversation that we're not solving our country's energy problems with solar power. Look,
no.
They are small.
How about spending money on
wind
things like
and solar? Look, I have no problem. Look, we're going to have to do that as part of the Sandy rebuild in New York City. Because if you look at the charts yesterday, Boston, underwater. Miami, underwater. I mean, these are realities we're going to have to deal with. But as Andrew pointed out, look, we're a country that Benghazi happened for a week last fall, and we thought the war ended over in Syria. That's who we are. And so unless people take the politics and stop the name-calling in this country, we will accomplish nothing.
How about something like on the order of the BRAC Commission, which is for base closings and base realignments, because neither party can politically have the guts to say, I want to close a base in Congressman Shays' home district or whatever. So there's an independent or a bipartisan organization that works on this and presents something that then gets, it's more likely to be voted up than down.
How else? We did that on financial stuff. I mean, we had, the Simpson Bowls. Yep. I mean, I thought that was the perfect thing. That went nowhere because the president took it and stuck it in a drawer.
It almost went somewhere.
Yeah.
And at least there was dialogue. My concern is we just don't have dialogue anymore. Our founding fathers thought, representatives would educate themselves, there would be dialogue, they'd educate the public would educate them. We just don't have dialogue about this very important issue. And by the way, this is 100 times more important than gun control.
Yep. I mean, and I'm a huge proponent of it. I just think we're going to look back at the opportunity and the wasted time when we don't have the luxury of it if we're not careful.
I'll be long gone.
All right. Well, speaking of being long gone, America is getting older here. The age landscape in the U.S. expected to change in the coming years. Now, what will the future hold for, again, our kids here. You're going to be surprised at just how it's a great thing everybody's living longer. Got fewer and fewer kids, though, to pay for more and more people on the other end of the age spectrum. We'll talk about that after this.